Good evening, and thank you for being here. I'm Vicki Westberg with the League of Women Voters, your moderator for this forum for the candidates for the office of South Carolina Senate Districts 38 and 39. The forum is sponsored by Berkeley Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters of the Charleston area. The co-sponsors are nonpartisan and don't support or oppose political parties or candidates. We ask our audience to turn off their audio and video during the forum. This forum and other League-sponsored forums are being live streamed to the League's Facebook page and then available for later viewing on Facebook and on vote411.org, the League's voter information website. On November 3rd, voters in District 38 and 39 will choose a candidate to represent them for 4-year terms. I'll now introduce our candidates. For Senate District 39, we have Mr. Tom Connor, the Republican candidate. You want to give a little wave. And Mr. Vernon Stevens, the Democratic candidate. The candidates for Senate District 38 is Mr. John Lowe, the Democratic candidate, and Senator Sean Bennett, the Republican candidate, who was unable to attend this afternoon when he advised us that he would not be here, but he has asked that we read a statement on his behalf, and I will read this statement when it would have been his turn for an introductory statement, and it will serve as both his introductory and his closing statement. The forum format will be as follows. Candidates in alphabetical order will have 60 seconds by district for introductory statements. I will ask questions from the co-sponsors and from the public that were submitted in advance. During the forum, chat and Q&A will be turned off. No questions will be asked that are directed to only one candidate or of a personal nature. Candidates have 90 seconds to respond to questions. Candidates may make additional 60-second comments after the other candidate for their district has responded. And you can signal me by just raising a hand. Each candidate will have 60 seconds for a closing statement in reverse order of the introductory statements. We ask that candidates use closing statements to summarize the issues they already discussed and their vision for the position they seek. Our timer, Joan Zaleski, will signal candidates when they have 30 seconds remaining. You want to show them your sign. And when time is up, which will be a stop sign. There we go. Okay, we will begin with the 60-second introductory remarks, which I will read on behalf of Mr. Bennett. These are Mr. Bennett's words. I appreciate the Berkeley Chamber and the League of Women Voters, despite the difficult times in which we find ourselves living, providing an outlet for public engagement. Despite those efforts, I regret that previous commitments keep me from joining you tonight to share our successes and discuss our future challenges. I am proud to have represented District 38 during unprecedented times of economic success. It was my promise when first elected to concentrate on job creation and economic growth. We are blessed to have accomplished these goals together, but much remains to be done, from education reform to improved access to quality health care, to further improving transportation infrastructure and governmental response to the next unknown challenge. I ask that you allow me to continue to fight for a better tomorrow for you, your family, and your business. Please reach out to me directly with any questions you may need answered. All contact methods, direct and social media based, are available at bennettscsenate.com, as is my solution agenda. Thank you for the honor to serve you and this community. And now we will ask Mr. Lowe for his opening statement.
Okay.
And
Good evening. First of all, thanks to the League of Women Voters, to the Berkeley Chamber for this forum, to my hopefully future co-workers in District 39. My hat's off to you. I'm John Lowe, candidate for District 38. District 38 is the eastern half of Dorchester County and the areas of Charleston and Berkeley County that abut Dorchester County near Highway 78. I'm seeking to serve about 105,000 people in this area. I really want to be one who goes to Columbia and on behalf of the constituents of District 38, find solutions that support your life, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness for many years to come. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Lowe. Now we will go to District 39 for the opening statement from Mr. Connor.
Hi, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Berkeley County organization for allowing me to speak tonight. I am from Utahville, South Carolina. It's a very small rural town in the eastern portion of Orangeburg County. I'm a constitutionalist. Basically anything in the Constitution you're going to find me in favor of. I'm pro-life, not ashamed to admit that, and I'm not going to explain why I'm pro-life. I took on the task of running as a Republican because I just wanted to give the people in the District 39 another voice in the Senate that's a conservative and caring voice. And as far as District 39, it encompasses 5 different counties: Orangeburg, Dorchester, Colleton, Berkeley, and Calhoun counties. And the line, borderline for the district is so convoluted, it would take me much more than 60 seconds to explain where my portions of the district are.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. We'll go now to Mr. Stevens.
Good evening. My name is Vernon Stevens. I am a candidate for South Carolina Senate seat District number 39. I'm a graduate of St. George High School, St. George, South Carolina, a graduate of South Carolina State College, now South Carolina State University. I've been a farmer since my youth, probably 40 years. I'm married to the former Hilda Johnson Stevens. We are the parents of 5 boys and 13 grandchildren. I've had a lucrative number of years working as a community activism, 18 years as a school board member, 6 of those years serving as an officer, as well as serving as the legislative liaison for the school district. I've been employed as a manufacturing manager for 28 years prior to my retirement in 2012. I see education, the environment, economic development, infrastructure, healthcare, affordable and convenient as some of the things that I hope to accomplish or work on when I am elected to the South Carolina Senate, representing the citizens of District 39, as well as citizens of the state of South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Okay, now we will go to our first question from the League and from the public. Why do you believe you are better qualified than your opponent to represent the citizens of your Senate district? And this question goes to Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. As I mentioned in my opening, I've had over 40 years of community activism. I have a keen insight as to some of the concerns of the constituency in District number 39. I've worked in just about every one of the communities that encompasses District 39. I've worked tirelessly with Senator John W. Matthews Jr. I've worked tirelessly with Congressman Clyburn and other members of our national delegation in Congress. I've advocated for school board issues as well as community development issues. not only on a local, but a state and a national level. I feel as though the individuals that I've been able to forge a relationship with are those individuals that we need to help us to take South Carolina to the next level. And I think with my experience and my desire to make sure that the citizens of District 39 in South Carolina be given the best of opportunities, then I am the best person to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. And we'll go to Mr. Connor. Same question.
Well, as a resident of District 39, a businessman, retired from the engineering field, I've seen the day-to-day struggles that people have, especially during the coronavirus pandemic. I'm affected by the lack of broadband in my section of the county. That's one of my main topics I'm going to be addressing after I'm elected to District 39. I also have, as a businessman, I'm closely related to the general public. We own a small restaurant, see a lot of people every day, and a lot of them, you know, have spoken to me about issues and concerns that they have, which need to be addressed as far as getting the people what they need. I also feel that the people in South Carolina can determine their own destiny and have adequate and good representation through me in the Senate. I think they're smart enough to determine what they want, and I'm opportunity to lead themselves. I think we have enough leaders now. I think the problem is we have too many leaders in politics, and we don't have enough representation. Too many people telling the public what they should have and what they need. And I just want to be a good voice for the people, make good laws, good decisions, and let them direct me and what they want for their lives and their children and their grandchildren.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. And to you, Mr. Lowe.
Thank you, Ms. Westberg. I would not go as far as to say I'm better qualified than my opponent. I will say that there are two key things that set me apart from my opponent. I've lived here in this part of Dorchester County since 1992, and I've never heard from my state senator. I've heard once from a person in the House of Representatives. That is not how we need folks to govern. We need our senators, we need our representatives to know what the people are thinking so that they can consider that before passing any legislation. I will do all that I can to be a great point of contact, have ears and feelers in the community, come face to face with my constituents on a regular basis to know and understand the issues that they're facing. The second thing is I am very talented at listening rather than speaking. I listen more than I speak intentionally. And after listening for a significant period of time, I will formulate questions, quite often hard questions, to get to the root of whatever matter is on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Okay, our second question is this. What measures would you support in enhancing racial relations in our communities? And we will go first to Mr. Lowe.
Ms. Rosberg, the thing that will help most to enhance racial relations in our communities is to listen to each other. Right now, and for most of my life, I'm 60 plus years old, I've observed people who will have opinions amongst themselves. They're small groups. And when it comes to communications with people who are different than they are, they will talk past them quite often. They will form opinions, they will talk about, but they will not sit and have respectful conversation with those who are not from their side of the track, so to speak. So communications are the thing that's missing. I was really pleased to see during the recent unrest how whites and blacks were out marching together and talking together and so on. But it should not take a crisis, and it should not happen on the street. We need to learn to sit down, face each other, and have difficult conversations without name calling, without suspicion, and so on. It takes goodwill and good communications.
Thank you, sir. And this question goes next to Mr. Connor.
Well, I'd like to echo Mr. Lowe's sentiments. A lot of what he said is very good information, very good policy. I think one of the best ways to kind of take care of the situation of racial divide, and this may sound strange to some people, is stop talking about it. If we keep bringing it up over and over again, you're going to continue to have it. It's like a fester on your finger, you know, where you're picking at a bump or something. It just keeps going and going. Leave it alone. People need to get together, and they can get together and talk, but do it in a rational way. Sure, protest is great. I'm all for the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and the ability of people to get out and protest when things are difficult. We have difficult times, and when we have events in the news that are just horrific and not conducive to good relations. But to keep continually bringing up race and the problems with race without getting together and talking about it among ourselves, not letting the media have their way with it, I think is one step in getting good race relations. And I kind of have lived in a bubble most of my life. My little town in Utahville, people tend to get along very well. I mean, both races. And I don't really see a problem. Maybe I've been going through life with blinders, but we get along pretty well in my little town. Pretty well indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. And Mr. Stevens.
As a county, as a state, and as a nation, we need to first realize and come out of denial that we have a problem racially. We have division that has crippled our communities, and we have sanctioned organizations, we have sanctioned different studies to come in and to evaluate our communities to see exactly what appears to be the problem. They give superficial answers, go back and file their report, and their report sits on the shelf without any type of action towards those goals that has been defined by that committee. So denial needs to come to reality. And once we get the opportunity to sit down with those on each side to say to them, for them to come to grips with, we do have a problem. You know, recognizing that you have a problem is one of the creating a smooth and a sincere meaning to an end that has to an end to a problem that has crippled our communities over decades, and we still seem to be not able to get beyond that. We need to open up the lines of communication, understanding and respecting each other, and that needs to be done sooner than later. As we look around in all of our communities, no matter where you are, there is division, and citizens are now coming to the forefront and voicing their concerns. However, when you look at our federal government, you look at our—
Stevens, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our third question is, what have you done lately and what will you do to reform the South Carolina education funding mechanism? And we'll start with Mr. Lowe.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What have you done lately, and what will you do to reform the South Carolina education funding mechanism?
I've done nothing recently to reform the South Carolina education funding mechanism. If elected, I will focus on improving education. If that includes funding issues, possibly working with my peers to see what we can do there. But I don't feel personally that funding is the main problem with education in South Carolina.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. Having served, as I mentioned earlier, 18 years as a school board member, as well as an advocate for and a legislative liaison for the School Board Association and my district, I got a firsthand view or firsthand knowledge of some of the problems or issues that face school districts throughout South Carolina. And funding seems to be one of the major holdbacks as it relates to trying to educate our children and get them to provide them a world-class education experience. When you look at the Education Improvement Act that was initiated or instituted back in the late 70s, have we done any type of improvement since then? Made any kind of amendments to that formula? No, we haven't. Per pupil spending is approximately $150 less than what our children actually should be receiving. We need to actually overhaul the funding formula, as well as continue with education reform that has been debated in both the South Carolina House of Representatives as well as the South Carolina Senate. The Education Oversight Committee of both the House and the Senate to have their plans that they have been discussing, and those plans are in a stage now where there should be a considerable amount of discussion on what direction we take, how we need to do that, and when we need to do it. So the funding formula needs a complete overhaul, and it needs to be brought up to date. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Connors.
Well, I've done nothing toward looking into ways or helping with funding of schools. I'll have to admit, I'm a product of the private school system, and my parents funded me to go to school, and I partially funded my children to go to schools, private schools, when we lived down in this area. I think the best thing, or one thing that we could do, is make sure that the money is spent wisely and adequately on education. I'm married to a retired teacher. She had to, in many ways, fund the supplies and materials that her first graders needed in order to do their job. I don't know, because I've never been a teacher, is exactly what the train is for getting dollars into the classroom for the students' materials. I'm not talking about textbooks or anything like that, but pencils, erasers, ink pens, whatever they need. I don't know that tax dollars are being spent the way they need to be spent. Years ago, I remember hearing a figure of like $12,000 to educate a student in South Carolina. And I know that some of the private schools were doing it for $6,000 to $8,500 because they're forced to be lean and to manage the money in a way that is productive to the school and the students. But one thing I want to do, and this will make some people wince, is when I get into office, I'm going to raise the specter of the voucher system again, so that people, regardless of who they are, where their kids are going to school, if they want to send their child to a school they think is better, be it a private school, parochial school, or another public school, give them the ability to have monies available so they can do that for the betterment of their children.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Mr. Lowe, you had a comment?
Thank you. I was saying, Ms. Westberg, I've spent the last 21 years in a support capacity in K-12 education in multiple districts in the State Department of Education. From my understanding of how things work, EFA, EIA funding is adequate. It simply has not been funded by the legislature fully for several years now, if I remember correctly. Also, the primary issue with K-12 education in South Carolina is we do not have a good plan for what our students need to know and how to guide them, if you will, from beginning point to success or to fully educated. That's the problem.
Thank you.
May I, Madam Moderator?
Oh, yes, Mr. Stevens.
Yes, just wanted to add, as we look at funding for public education and we look at all of the different intricacies that is involved in public education, one of the things that sometimes we take for granted is those individuals who are standing in front of our kids and helping our kids to grasp the information that is being they are exposed to during the course of a day. Our teachers, our first line of defense for education, our teachers' pay is way beyond the Southeastern average. Yes, South Carolina made some efforts in the last couple of years to bring that up. We have not gotten there yet. There is a considerable lot of work yet to be done to get our teachers to the Southeastern average, as well as getting them above the Southeastern average. So there too is the tool by which we can attract good quality teachers into our school systems who will be there to stay.
Thank you, sir. Okay, question number 4. Do you support or oppose resolutions that would require calling a constitutional convention to amend the U.S. Constitution? What benefits would you expect and what concerns do you have? And we'll begin with Mr. Lowe.
Repeat the question, please.
Do you support or oppose resolutions that would require calling a constitutional convention to amend the U.S. Constitution? What benefits would you expect and what concerns do you have?
Honestly, I had not thought about this at all. I would have to do some research and find out exactly what the issues are. I'm sorry.
Fair is fair. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Connor.
I'm finding more and more that I like Mr. Lowe. You know, he's kind of a thinker like me. I'm a constitutionalist. I don't believe the Constitution is a living document. I think that it was written by some very intelligent people, even though they're 200 and some odd years ago in the past. It's almost one of the most perfect documents that exist in the world today, much like the Magna Carta. So unless it was really something drastic that really needed to be taken care of, that was affecting the lives of everybody in this country in a negative way, I really would not be in favor of any kind of resolution or group getting together to want to modify the existing Constitution except by amendment. I think the amendments we have, the policies in the Constitution as they're written are what they're supposed to be, and it affects the world, not just the country, but anything in our Constitution would affect the world. So I'm really not in favor of changing anything in the Constitution, but I am willing to accept amendments to the Constitution to improve the lives of the people in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens.
Amendments to the Constitution. I view the Constitution as a true document that precipitates all of our lives. It is one that assures life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How we get there is a different story. So there are some aspects of the Constitution. I think if review would be in order, I would only look at looking at the Electoral College versus the populist vote. As most of you know, over the last few decades, we have had elections where someone has actually not been elected because of the votes of the Electoral College. So, and I know our founding fathers looked at making sure that they had certain things into the Constitution that would assure a smooth running government. But you know, when we have in our Constitution that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we must make sure that all of that actually happens. And if it don't, then we need to look at other means by which we can assure that this do happen.
Mr. Connor, you had a comment.
Yeah, my understanding of the purpose of the Electoral College is to give the sparsely populated areas of the country more or less an equal say versus the more populous areas of the country. If we did away with the Electoral College, every election, California, New York, Chicago, and Houston, Texas, the large cities would be determining who is the president of the United States. So the Electoral College, yeah, some people get elected or get the popular vote and don't get the Electoral College vote. And there's a reason for that, so that we can spread out and give everybody a chance with their vote to determine who leads the country.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our fifth question. Do you support or oppose Medicaid expansion in South Carolina? And please explain. And we'll start with Mr. Connor.
I do, on a limited basis. I think there are people that definitely need help in some of the poorer areas, especially with the pandemic, with so many people out of work. A little bit of extra Medicaid help would be a tremendous asset. I don't know what the solution would be to fund the expansion of Medicaid. I know people personally that are on Medicaid, and it benefits them to no end to be on it. I'm all for it. I think the people need it. But certainly not, it needs to be in a limited fashion as to how much more we fund Medicaid, and possibly make it a little easier for people to get on Medicaid that really need it.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Stevens.
Yes, I truly believe in the expansion of Medicaid into South Carolina. As we look at the number of citizens who would basically fit up under that umbrella, it is alarming. And you know, we do know that this information is derived from our census and other avenues by which these figures are compiled. But when I lived in a school district, I live in a school district where 98% of the children are receiving free and reduced lunch. I know that money that the parents are making is not enough to sustain them, as well as to take care of their medical needs. So we need to make sure that we, the state of South Carolina, take care of those who are definitely in dire need of medical assistance, Medicaid, and we need to do it to assure that we do have a safe and we have a healthy citizenry.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Mr. Lowe?
Yes, I absolutely support expansion of Medicaid in South Carolina. If it's not Medicaid, we need to do something. Healthcare is an essential in today's environment. We're living in a toxic, poisoned world due to not taking care of the planet, and it's causing sicknesses that people can get out of no fault of their own. So Medicaid expansion would be one way to cut into that gap of those who do not have health insurance in South Carolina. While we accepted Medicaid in its current form, paying 10 cents on the dollar essentially for that cost, as long as the federal government's program lasts, I would encourage our state government and indeed lead some of the fight to find other ways to fund that health care when that federal money goes away, or better ways to do it at less cost than Medicaid.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator, may I make another comment, please?
Certainly.
When I look at health issues, and one of those things that I mentioned that I was truly concerned about was health care, convenient and affordable. If we were to look at South Carolina, and District 39 is basically rural, the private wells that our citizens draw their water from, if you were to do a study, over 70% of those wells have toxins and contaminants that is not good for the body. And until we as a state, as communities can do something to clean up our water or provide our citizens with a ample and a good supply of drinking water, then we are going to be stuck with children who are sick, middle-aged citizens who are sick, as well as our elderly. And we need to make sure that we put in place Medicare expansion that would help our citizens because of some of those things that we have not guaranteed to them. And one of those things is good, healthy drinking water.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. That's a wonderful segue into our next question. What do you specifically, what do you have specifically in mind for advancing clean energy in South Carolina, as wind, solar, and even sweet potatoes for ethanol could bring sustainable jobs to our state? And we'll start with Mr. Stevens.
Having been a proponent of solar energy for, oh my goodness, for probably the last 5-6 years, and as most of you know, Bowman is the solar capital for the state of South Carolina. So I've had the distinct privilege of listening to solar companies and how safe and how convenient solar panels are for homes, as well as solar energy being pumped into our rural electrical transmission lines, as well as companies buying that particular energy from the solar companies. I will continue to press upon the state of South Carolina. We do have the Clean Energy Act, but there's some other things that we need to make sure that's in that legislation that left up to the Public Service Commission and some others will not come to fruition. So the very intent of the law need modification, or need to be explained to those who help regulate utilities in South Carolina. So, you know, solar energy, 100% in favor of. Other forms of energy that is convenient and is safe, you know, for the sake of going and talking about something that is detrimental, and it's coal. We can no longer rely on coal burning facilities to provide energy to the customers and to the residents of the state of South Carolina. The health hazards involving that is long-term as well as right now. So different sources of energy is part of my agenda.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Connor.
Well, I'm 100% for solar energy use. I'm also 100% in favor of harnessing wind for energy. Unfortunately, South Carolina is not in a very windy area, not like the Midwest or the West. I think that giving the credits to people to put solar panels on their homes is a good idea. I think it will help more people to make the decision to go solar. One thing that concerns me about going solar is the life of the panels generally is about 20 years. And from what I've read and been told by people in the business, that it takes 15 to 20 years for payback on the solar system that you have. So it's a kind of a continuing loop, just like you're stuck in the continuing loop of buying power from a energy source like Dominion, or people that feed off Dominion, like the different county power grids. But solar is a good thing. Give more credits, more tax credits to people. Help them pay for their solar systems on their homes. Encourage more municipalities to have large solar farms and get off the dependence of coal-fired power plants. And I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Connor. Mr. Lowe.
Well, solar is a good idea, and I'm glad to see that quite a few homes are moving to solar panels and so on now. I think that we need to extend that technology, reduce the size of those panels, get it into environments other than home use or business use. But the one that's most encouraging to me is hydrogen energy. I'm a ex-Navy person who cruised the ocean in nuclear submarines, and I know that nuclear power was good, but it lives too long after its use. Hydrogen energy, however, can be made from natural conditions, and there is no toxic residue from it. So I'm really encouraged, and I believe the hydrogen powered vehicles, hydrogen plants and so on will be a great use in the future. There is no one answer, however, when it comes to alternative energy sources. We should never put all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak. We should fund research through our universities, through government, to find alternative energy sources, all working toward a zero carbon footprint for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Okay. What policies do you support to affect change in the criminal justice system? And we'll start with Mr. Lowe.
Well, I've never been one to experiment with marijuana, but I think that we have too many people in the criminal justice system for something that appears to be no more harmful than alcohol is. Now, being the son of an alcoholic father, I know that there is danger and harm in alcohol, even marijuana and so on. But I'm saying, relatively speaking, there's no more danger from marijuana than alcohol. Yet one is legal, one is illegal. Let's get that out of the justice system. I think that the grand jury system needs to have a hard look. We all learned about grand juries on TV news from the Breonna Taylor incident, but South Carolina is not in as good a shape as Kentucky, where that incident happened. That needs a serious look. Also, I think that we need to do more education for all of us around civil law rather than criminal law, because there's quite a lot of abuse to the civil justice system rather than criminal justice system. We need to look at it hardly.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Connor.
Well, I too think that one way you could kind of reform criminal justice is to lessen the marijuana charges that people have faced being in prison for simple possession. I'm kind of in favor of having, in a way, marijuana just legalized. I mean, you would eliminate a lot of crime by doing that. I've never used it. I don't plan to, but I think that it does have its benefits as far as the medical industry is concerned, but putting somebody away for X number of years for, just a simple possession, a few ounces of marijuana, I think is contributing to the overpopulation of our prisons. Also, you have to have prosecutors and solicitors that just simply don't go after a person because of race or background or culture. You've got to weed out the bad apples in that group as well as bad cops, because you hear too many stories of people being sentenced to long jail terms for a crime they did not commit. And I don't know what the best answer for that is just have better investigation, better informed jurors, and just, try a case on the merits of the case itself and not on the merits or opinions to the negative of solicitors or prosecutors.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stevens.
Our judicial system needs quite an overhaul as we look at individuals who are actually convicted for crimes that is not detrimental to the community, or those who have taken the lives of someone. There appears to be a disparity in how sentences are carried out as it relates to different individuals. I know that an individual, if he or she can't afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for them, him or her. And a lot of times that individual is not given a fair shake because that defense attorney that has been appointed has such a caseload that he can't actually do very much for that client. So we need to make sure we need to look at how we treat those individuals who don't have the funds to actually afford a good lawyer or a lawyer, as well as looking and reviewing, how do we actually, and what's the scope for actually sending someone to jail and their sentence. I think we don't look fairly at sentencing, and sentencing is not carried throughout on a practical manner as it relates to some of the individuals who have going through our judicial system. So things left into the hands of the lawyers and the judges, I have some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Okay. What should be the role of South Carolina citizens in helping redraw congressional, Senate, House, and local district lines next year? And we'll go first to Mr. Connor.
Well, I think the first and maybe the only thing citizens can do is be honest with their census reports and vote. That basically determines in a legal fashion what the district lines are for any given county, or any Senate or House district, or as far as the sheriff goes as well. Too many instances of gerrymandering have occurred to force district lines into unrealistic boundaries. And I think that the people really need to vote on what their boundaries should be and not let that be determined by members of the House or the Senate. And that's what I say about that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Connor, for stealing my opening line. If citizens truly wanted to participate in that aspect of drawing lines, then they have the number one thing with them, and that is their pen as they do their census. We have been beating the roads, beating the streets, getting individuals to please fill out your census, and all of those things that are derived from the census. I know that there will be hearings as it relates to lines being drawn for senatorial districts, for U.S. any district that is a part of South Carolina. Those districts will be redrawn. However, we need to make sure that everything is taken in consideration when drawing districts. I know, yes, we have did a lot of gerrymandering over the years, Mr. Connor, and you know, if you want your population to, you want your state to reflect your population, sometimes you have to settle for trying to make sure that we have some type of equal representation throughout the state, throughout the county, or throughout the district. So we need to, those representatives, those persons who are elected, members of our General Assembly, needs to have meetings in their respective communities, listening to the concerns of their citizens that relates to reapportionment, and getting them to understand from a legislative standpoint, these are some of the things that we may be faced with, but I want to hear your opinion as it relates to redistricting, and I will try my best to get those things on the table when drawing the lines.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Mr. Connor, you had a comment.
Well, I'd just like to say that his statements about being fair as far as representation of the people goes sounds a lot like the Electoral College and the presidential election. Some people want it one way, but they don't want it another. So that's really all I've got to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, candidates. I think that's all the questions we have time
Vicki,
for.
you forgot Mr. Lowe. You forgot Mr. Lowe.
Mr. Lowe, you have a comment. Go ahead.
Yes, do I get to answer that question?
Oh, heavens to Betsy, I didn't ask you. I'm sorry.
All right.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Vicki, I feel like the citizens should have a whole lot more say in the whole redistricting process than what we have. I mentioned earlier that I've lived right here for many years. I don't know if I mentioned or not, but I've never heard from my senator. I've never heard from, well, I've heard once from my representative. Redistricting is about choosing representation for the citizens. This is about the citizens, not about the elected officials. Right now, those in office are our representatives. After November, whoever's in office are our representatives. They need to make sure that they reach out to the constituents now, if never before, to find out what we are thinking out here about the redistricting process. Redistricting is how we choose is the start of how we choose our representation. Political parties in South Carolina, all political parties should disavow any gerrymandering whatsoever that benefits the party. If we should agree from the very beginning that if it benefits our party, we're not going to do it. If it benefits any party, we're not going to do it. We're going to do things that benefit the electorate, not those who are sitting in office now. How do they do that? I believe that virtual town halls in this environment, forums, etc., are the way to get feedback from the electorate about how their lines are drawn. And then after all that is taken into consideration, then sit down, draw the lines, and then send out information, get feedback from the electorate.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Any comments? Okay. Thank you, candidates. That's all the questions we have time for this evening. But before we take closing statements from our candidates, let's let them take a breath. And here is some important voting information for the November 3rd election. Whether you are voting early, in person, absentee by mail on election day, Important to make your voting plan. A lot of voting rules have changed in 2020, including options for how, when, and where you can vote. Now is a great time to check your voter registration on vote411.org, the League's nonpartisan voter information website, and make sure you are ready to participate in this upcoming election. Also on Vote 411, you can learn about the candidate you will be voting for, compare candidate responses to League questions, find your polling place, and learn about any COVID-related voting changes. Early voting by mail and in person began this week. To request an absentee ballot, contact your county election office now. For early voting times and locations, visit your county election office website or the voting page on the League's website. And we have those on the screen for you. Here we go. Okay, it's time for closing 60-second statements. We'll go in reverse order from the opening statements. And as I mentioned before, we've already given Mr. Bennett's closing statement at the same time as his opening statement. So we will begin with 60-second closing statements with Mr. Stevens.
Again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, especially the League of Women Voters of Berkeley County. I'd like to suggest thank you for hosting such a dynamic forum this evening, and I look forward to others in the future. Once again, I want to remind those who are listening that Vernon Stevens over the years have fought tirelessly for those who are standing in the need of change. And I believe my record will reflect such, whether or not it was for education, economic development, healthcare. I hold all of those things dear to my heart. And I will continue to pound, when I get to Columbia, the cement so that others can understand that we need to make sure that we educate our children for a world-class environment that which they will be living in. So education, the environment, economic development, affordable healthcare, healthcare that is affordable, convenient, and infrastructure, all of those things will have to remain at the forefront if we are to make a difference in our communities.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. And Mr. Connor.
Well, I'd like to say thank you again for allowing us to have this forum. I too want to represent the people. Like Mr. Lowe, I felt neglected by my House and Senate representatives as far as being giving adequate representation, especially on problems that I had in the past. I will work tirelessly for the people in the district, and I will be accessible. My phone will be open to anyone who wants to call with a problem. You may get a secretary initially, but I will return all calls if I don't answer the phone personally myself. And I just want to say that I think I'm going to really enjoy serving with Mr. Lowe in the Senate, and we seem to be like-minded, and we'll do lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connor.
Don't forget about me.
Oh, you can come.
Mr. Lowe.
Well, thank you to the citizens of Berkeley, Dorchester, and Charleston County who have taken the time to educate yourselves by using this wonderful resource. Thank you to the Berkeley Chamber of Commerce who have co-sponsored this. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for your continuous effort in educating the voters and making sure that democracy works. In closing, I can say that I'm John Lowe. I'm retired from my earthly or career occupation, so now is the time for me to serve the public using everything that has been given to me. You will not see me supported by large businesses, PACs, and so on until I'm elected. Why? Because I want to send a clear message that this candidate is not for sale. I'm here to represent the public, and I will accept no campaign contributions from special interest groups, etc., until I'm elected. Why then? Because then I'll have even more work to do, but it'll be clear to the public that I am not for sale. I'm here to represent the voters of Berkeley, Dorchester, and Charleston, South Carolina. And I will do that to the best of my ability. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. We have a quick statement from our facilitator, Barbara Griffin.
Yes, I wanted to make sure that I alerted all of you that we had a connectivity issue with Facebook this evening and were not able to live stream. But our experience with technology has taught us to always have a backup plan. And fortunately, we have recorded this forum. We will prepare that video and upload it to Facebook so that all of our many interested parties, your potential constituents, friends and supporters will be able to view the forum. That should be done tomorrow. So we regret it, but we planned just in case it might happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you all again for taking the time to hear from our candidates. We encourage you to study the issues carefully, learn about the positions of each candidate, and vote for the candidate of your choice on November 3rd. Many thanks to our candidates for State Senate Districts 38 and 39. Please turn on your audio and video and give them a warm round of applause, and then we will all go have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.